markets. We just finished Indonesia. They opened up their country. We just finished Japan. They opened up their country. You know, I'd love to see China open up their country. So we're dealing with China right now as we speak. Yeah, we're dealing with China right now.
And that was President Trump just moments ago speaking about ongoing talks with China. Here with reaction in Arkansas is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. He's chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. I want to get to a couple of topics with you. But first on China, this is a lot more than just buying goods. This trade deal is quite important with China for many different reasons. What are you looking to see out of it?
Yeah, Dana, good morning. Well, the president is on an undeniable hot streak with deals with Indonesia, Japan, now the European Union. Of course, the difference there is that those are all friendly allied countries or the European Union itself. China is an adversary, and China has been cheating and stealing from American farmers and manufacturers and scientists for decades. So aside from simple tariffs that we want China to reduce, we also want them to stop that theft of all of our wealth, all of our intellectual property. We want them to open up their markets. We want them to quit using things like critical minerals or other items to try to get leverage over the United States politically. At the same time, while we need to build up our own capacity to produce those critical items so they can't have that leverage over us.
I'm just coming back from a week of vacation. I try to keep up with the news. One of the things that happened is the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, released information last week that has many people taking a look back to 2016 to find out if the previous administration, through Brennan all the way up the chain, had any impact or influence over that 2016 election. And you've been in the Senate since that time, and I know there was a report about all of this. What is new now that we should focus on?
Yeah, Dana, what Tulsi Gabbard disclosed last week was a House Intelligence Committee report that exposed that John Brennan and Jim Clapper, Jim Comey, even Barack Obama, it would appear, directed the exclusion of critical intelligence from their infamous report in early 2017 that concluded that Russia didn't try to interfere with the election, but had a strong preference for Donald Trump. I thought at the time that was silly. Why would Vladimir Putin favor Donald Trump, a man that wanted to rebuild our military, that wanted NATO to get stronger, that wanted to produce more American oil? All things clearly not in Moscow's interest. That's why I and Secretary Rubio and other Republicans on the Senate Intelligence Committee at the time said that there was no evidence whatsoever of any collusion between the Trump campaign and Vladimir Putin's Russia, something that the Democrats in the Congress at the time kept pushing, even when it was clear there was no evidence of it whatsoever. So I think it's important that this report has come to light. I commend Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe and Kash Patel for what they've already released, and I would encourage them to continue to try to release as much as possible, as quickly as possible. For instance, we need to see the classified annex of John Durham's special counsel report to know exactly what John Brennan and Jim Clapper and Jim Comey were saying to Congress about these matters. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I've got legislation that would reform the DNI that would help them focus on things like these critical disclosures and stopping Islamic terrorism and the threat from communist China, as opposed to things like climate change and DEI. And
do you have bipartisan support on that?
Yes, we do. I introduced it earlier this year with bipartisan support. We've passed it through the Senate Intelligence Committee. We expect we'll pass it through the Congress. It's very important. The DNI has grown over the years. It's sometimes a result of bureaucratic bloat and empire building, but unfortunately sometimes it's the result of Congress adding more mandates to the DNI that it shouldn't have and that prevent it from doing its job, like stopping Islamic terrorism or communist China's threat to America, or stopping the politicization of our intelligence agencies. So the DNI has asked us to remove some of those congressional mandates, either eliminate them entirely or assign them to agencies that would be more appropriate. That's why we're working with the White House and the DNI closely on this legislation, and I expect it will pass with broad bipartisan support.
As a person old enough to remember before there was an Office of DNI, I think that that's true. Of course, Congress adding things to their plate that really shouldn't have to be there. All right, Senator Tom Cotton, thank you for sticking with us today.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.